Today, I think I have that we're talking about winter flowers, and if you had read the internet, it said we were going to kind of stress one of JC's favorites, the Prunus mume, but we're not. Sorry, you should have been here a different year. But on that idea, JC liked the Prunus mume because it flowered at a time of the year there was so little else in blossom. Unfortunately, this year, or actually last year, they flowered. They did very well while I was away on vacation in December and the first week of January. And I think the rain got them. They flowered very early, and the rain pummeled the flower buds. And so they basically look pitiful this year. There's a few blossoms if you look closely. But typically, they're starting to come into their peak right now. That's why we had them as the highlight plant. But we're going to skip those for today. Come back next year to see the Prunus mume. But we're going to get started, I think. We're going to see what we can find. I have a list that I've given, I hope, everybody. Is there still anybody who doesn't have a list?
We ran out of copies,
We're out of copies again?
Yep.
Okay. So
I'll make some.
how many people need a list?
10.
Oh, probably 5 to 10 would be a good bar. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. I don't have one. I gave it away.
Double-sided, Barb.
So we're going to start up around the corner here. And like Chris said, this is a very big crowd, so stay close if you can. We are going to be going through some tight places. I did not expect, I'm guessing, 55 or 60 people. Our first plant is, oh, there's a telephone. Our first plant is this hellebore right here. This is Helleborus Smithii, COS EH 790. Yes, wonderful name. I just found that out. We had it wrong in our files this morning, and I found the correct name by chance. The trade name is, it's one of the HGC series, Shooting Star. And that's what we had it as for the longest time, or for a year and a half. But this is one of the newer hellebores. It's an Smithii. The Smithii hellebores are crosses between Helleborus niger, which is the Christmas rose. They can flower December and January, February sometimes. But they tend to be before the Lenten roses, crossed with a Sternii, which a Sternii is a hybrid in itself. It's a cross between Lividus and Argutifolia, which are two other species from southern Europe. I think Argutifolia is commonly called the Corsican hellebore. They look quite different from Niger. They tend to have green flowers, or at least an Argutifolia, and the pink that you're seeing in this comes from the Lividus, which has often a pinky colored flower. And the foliage is coming from a combination of all three. When you get up here, you'll get to see that the foliage on this is really nice foliage. We did not trim these back. The Helleborus hybridas, which are the Lenten roses that everyone grows, those we tend to trim all the old foliage off them because it gets ugly and ratty. These have been in the ground for about a year and a half, 2 years now, and it doesn't have a bad leaf on it. Very versatile plant. And these, I was reading, some of them said they flowered, I think January and February, late January at that. Well, these have been flowering since mid-December. We've had blossoms on these, and they're still great looking right now. Unlike the hybrids that everyone has, and it's partly due to the fact that they self-sow everywhere, you won't have an issue with that here. These are sterile. Because this is such a complex hybrid and distant hybrid between some of the parents, they can't have kids. So they don't waste time making seed, and therefore they're really vigorous plants. They will flower their heads off. And you get a very vigorous, clean looking, healthy plant. Let's see, do I have anything else I wouldn't mention about this one? Not too much, I guess. I think that's about it. But I encourage everyone to weave in around here. But before we do that, I will start talking about the next plant, which is right down here. But this is so you will be able to see the next plant. These are actually readily available. A lot of the local nurseries will have these, probably like Logan's, or if here at the end of the month, I know in searching for information for these that Pine Knot Farms has this one. which they have their open house at the end of the month, in first of next month. But for those who can see currently, there's a few little Galanthus right here. Galanthus are snowdrops, which there's between 15 and 20 recognized species of them. They range from throughout Western Europe, east to Iran, the Cossacks, and the Caspian Sea region of Western Asia. So they're very early flowering, as their name says, snowdrops. Despite the fact they're white, they often will flower when there's snow on the ground. The one we have here is one of the more common species, Novalis. It's about the most common of the species, in fact. But this is a selection called Magnet, and I looked up some information about it. It's one of the more vigorous ones. It holds the flower out on a very long pedicel, so the flower almost looks like it's on a little fishing rod. Not all the cultivars are have this long of a pedicel, which is one of the distinct characteristics. And if you look, there's actually 3 sepals and 3 petals. The 3 petals are the inside, what you think of as petals on the inside. The little, basically, and they're edged in green on this one, and it forms a V, and that's one of the distinct characteristics on this cultivar, is this green V that you see on the lip of the inner petals. In general, they're just called tepals if you don't know which are petals and which are not. But, this is a very vigorous one. I just planted a few here. I think last year we put these in the ground, so they're starting to actually clump up a tiny bit already. Not all the cultivars are as equally as vigorous, so that's another reason to grow Magnet. And it has a very large flower in general too. So some of them are already spent, but there's still a good number here that are just opening up and looking prime. So file through here and take a look as you walk by.
Question?
Okay?
You've got these all planted real high.
They're in a berm, but it's partly just so you can see them.
Oh.
You can plant these anywhere around here. Galanthus don't want to have wet feet, but they can have just general soil. It doesn't have to be well
drained. Because I keep reading that it needs to be moist.
Moist, but not wet, and not dry. They like to actually be a little bit moist especially during the winter when they're actively growing.
Okay, but it doesn't need to be wet.
No, yeah, but they don't want to be like parched in the sun either. So they'll grow in our soils here, no problem. Unless you're putting them in sand, they would not.
And they like shade.
They can grow in deciduous shade very well, due to the fact that, well, they're active when there's no leaves on the trees above them, if that's the case. You know, they're growing under the deciduous shade. They won't grow real well under evergreen shade, unless it's a very high canopy. That makes sense?
So it can take full sun in the winter.
Full sun in the winter is perfectly fine. And full sun in the summer, for that matter. Just not dry. It's not parched dry in the winter. I haven't put any snowdrops on the roof garden. Let's just put it that way. Okay, our next plant, for those who can see, is this plant right here. This is Cornus officinalis, and I have to eat it. Spring Glow. We used to call this Cornus moss, so, but this is one JC actually selected. This is Cornus officinalis. Like I said, Spring Glow. It's officinalis in general is a species of Camellia cherry from East Asia. It's from China, Japan, and Korea, if I remember right here, without looking at my cheat sheet. Yep. And versus Cornus moss is from Eastern and Central Europe and into Western Asia. So they're very similar in appearance, but they're disjunct in where they're from, basically. Cornus moss flowers about a week and a half, 2 weeks later, typically, than officinalis. JC selected this as Cornus moss as an early flowering form of Cornus moss. So we kind of found out that it's officinalis, not moss, as one of the reasons there. Also, he also selected this because it's a little more heat tolerant. It flowers very well in the southeast. Not all forms of Camellia cherry will flower real well in the southeast, but this one does. They're just opening now. As you come through here, you'll see the tiny yellow individual florets, but they're in little clusters of maybe 10 to 20 florets. And this will just be totally yellow in about another week, week and a half. The flowers are very hardy, so if we have cold weather, it's not anything to worry about. These will take down into at least the single digits and not be phased, probably below 0 in reality. They grow these further north with no problem. Another nice characteristic, especially for the winter, is the bark. On mature plants, and this one's been in the ground, I think probably since about 2008. If I'm remembering correctly, I can't see its number. Look. Yeah, 2007 actually. So I planted this one. And it was about 3 feet tall. It has grown significantly since then, and it started to get the mature characteristics of the exfoliating bark, which is really nice throughout the whole year, not to mention the winter when you can really see it and appreciate it. The Camellia cherries are just a really good color for the winter. Great cut flower, and cut stems bring them in. And brighten the house up much like you would forsythia. And if you're lucky, in late summer, you might get, in early fall, you'll get red fruit. They're theoretically edible if you don't mind the tartness, or if you add enough sugar. It does have, looks like a very oblong cherry, and that's where the Carillion cherry comes from on that. Let's see, do I have anything else I wanted to mention? There's another one we won't actually see officinalis in the winter garden called Kentucky, which was one that was selected by Barry Yinger, who's another plantsman, actually from southeastern Pennsylvania, and who was a friend of JC's as well. So I think that's about it for now on this, unless there's any questions.
How big are the blooms on this one?
Look at them as you walk by. They're gigantic.
When it's in full bloom?
This, pardon? Probably a good month and a half.
That's as big as they get?
This is a cluster of probably up to 15 to 20 flowers. They'll open up a little bit more, but you get that covering the whole thing. This is not a bract dogwood. That is, you're not growing it for the great big white bracts or pink bracts that you get on your flowering dogwoods. This one you're growing for the bright yellow flowers in the center, which are actually individually quite small, but much like that you'd see in the state tree here, or actually the state flower here of North Carolina, Cornus, Florida. Put 4 bracts on that and you have it, right? Just not this early in the year. Okay, the next one is, you see this patch of grass here? It's not grass, it's a crocus. This is Crocus Inapterus, take that back, imperati. It starts with an I. Crocus imperati de Jager. This little crocus does a big job. It's the best flowering crocus I have in the garden. It's been flowering since the middle of December. And there's still a bunch of flowers on it. It flowers for a good 2 months once you have an established clump. I don't have any other crocus that will go for that long. That is the great thing about this one. It's a species, the imperati is from, let's see, from central Italy, is what I found out about this one. They actually, when I was reading, they said it flowered later than this. They said it flowered in the late winter, early spring. I think it flowers late fall, early winter, midwinter, for us anyways. It doesn't, our clump did not read the book, but this has been an excellent crocus. If you go through our photo collection, you'll see some close-ups of this, so if you don't get a good picture of it, or view of it today, just go online. I have lots of them now. But that's what I just wanted to point out as we came by here. And I think everyone knows what crocus are, don't they?
Yeah.
Some of them are very favored by squirrels to make. We planted I don't know how many thousand in January 2015 with some of the volunteers that were donated. I don't know how many thousand the squirrels ate. I found that they like yellow is their preference, but then they'll go to other colors. But some of these earlier flowering ones they have not bothered. So chrysanthus are ones that they seem to find extremely tasty. So anyways, that's our first crocus there. We'll have another one. It looks very similar to this, and it's also from Italy, but we'll find it later on. We got these from Brett and Becky bulbs. I don't know if they have it every year, but this is one that's where to look, definitely. But look online. There's lots of places that sell bulbs. But that's one to look look for. Imperati de Jager. Yep. Oh yeah, if you order from Brent and Becky's, we can benefit if you somehow, I don't remember how it works, but you
just tell them.
You tell them that you're associated with the JCRA Arboretum, and somehow we benefit. I don't know if that's how I get my free bulbs or what, but we can.
They have a special page. It's bloomingbucks.com, and a little pull-down menu, and choose JCRA Arboretum or your other favorite nonprofit. Hopefully we rank as your favorite nonprofit, and we actually get 25% of the sales, not in bulbs, but actually in dollar value. So that's a very, very wonderful benefit for nonprofits.
Where is it? Say that again.
Brent and Becky's is located in Virginia near Norfolk, and they're a great place for wonderful bulbs in this area. Yep.
Okay, the next plant, for those of you who can't see, is right down here. You'll have to see it when you file by. It is Narcissus Sporo. Is that close? Sporo? Yeah. Like Poirot. And actually, this is a hybrid. It was grown from seed in the early 80s in Tasmania, actually. It's one of the hoop petticoat type Narcissus, and you can see that when you get up to it. It's a pastel yellow. They actually describe it as pale green, or white to green is what pale green is what they describe this as in Narcissus terms. It's not pure white. I think it's a pale yellow. But anyways, you know, I was reading this on an English website. They have totally different. It's a very floriferous little bulb. This is another one. We got this again from Brent and Becky's. And it got some kind of award. I think this got award of Garden Merit a few years back from the Royal Horticultural Society. So it is a great little Narcissus, and as some of, let's see, darn, it's a cat. Lynn over here. She says this is actually named after Poirot, or Hercule Poirot from Agatha Christie's books in the TV show that was made about that. It's actually, this is, I guess, in a series. I've never seen any of the others in the series, but let's see, it's in a collection, let's see, I have to find it here, of little detective series of, I'm assuming Narcissus, but, so Sporo is a very fitting name for it, but it is a most adorable little Narcissus. It's been flowering for about a month already, at least. It was flowering probably the end of December, so as you walk by, you'll see them, and there's still lots of blossoms on it. It's a very different daffodil. It's not the big yellow cups that you're accustomed to. So
it's on a hill with rocks.
It doesn't have to be. It'll grow, and it wants full sun. Most of these smaller narcissus are wanting full sun to do best. Yeah, I have to steady myself here. I won't fall.
On the agave.
It's not really I might fall on Sporo instead. But most of these smaller narcissus want full sun, so that is a key thing. Well-drained soils are ideal, but not a requirement.
When do the leaves come up?
They come up probably starting in November, late October, early November. They'll start to come up. So this one leaves out earlier than a lot of your other narcissus too. There are some of the bulbicodium type or the hoop petticoat type narcissus actually flower in the fall. And this one probably has some of those. It actually does. I looked up the parentage, and it's not some of the species I can spit out. There's one that starts with an R, and there's like subspecies, blah, 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 variety, something else. You know. It's about a mile-long name for a miniature plant. So. And it's a seedling crossed with something else. So, anyways, and it has fall flowering parentage in it.
And then how long do the leaves persist?
The leaves will persist probably until May, early May. Yeah.
So longer than most narcissus.
Yeah.
Do they spread?
It actually has bulked up reasonably well here. They're not going to self-sow everywhere or anything, but they will spread into in little tight clumps.
That's good too.
Our next one is the second crocus I have on the list this year. This is Crocus etruscus and Zauenberg is how I'm going to say it. Don't quote me as that being the correct pronunciation. It's the name of a nursery that is known for bulbs, actually, I think in Germany. But anyways, this is a great selection of Crocus etruscus. This is, well, where do you think this one's from? What part of Italy?
Northern. Central.
Tuscany! It's from Tuscany, yes. It's from the Tuscany region of Italy, which apparently is in, let's see. Oh, it says northern Italy versus, I think the other was, where was the other one from? It was from central Italy. So yeah, this one's further north. Actually, the flower looks very similar to me to the Jager. But this is flowers about a month later. But this has been another great one. It's bulked up very well. Those have been in the ground since probably January of 2014. And that little clump it's great now. I have some other clumps I just planted the last year that are already starting to do their thing. I have some other crocus that I planted down there that still look like they're the individual bulbs that were planted at the same time as those. Those don't look like they were the individual bulbs now. And they're very profuse, as you can see. Again, it's a selection from Tuscany. And it's another early bloomer. And again, they were saying it was late winter, early spring again. This is winter. Or midwinter now. But anyways, it's been flowering for actually, it came out the week or just a couple days before the snowstorm or the ice storm. So actually the early flowers of this I thought were going to get decimated. They did not get phased by the ice that we had on here there 2 weeks ago. So another reason to grow this little one. Profuse flowering. Again, these crocus are probably going to want as much sun as you can get, but they'll take light shade as well. But you'll get the best flowering from that. The rabbits seem to like them a little bit too.
When you say sun, if it's in a deciduous area,
as long that's better. Yeah, that's probably okay as long as it's deciduous. Get as much light to them as possible. You might not put them under something that leaves out very early, but like the high shade of underneath oak trees, which tend to leaf out rather late, you're probably good. Any Daphne odora. Who's growing Daphne odora? Aren't they wonderful for their fragrance?
Who's killed Daphne odora?
Yeah, who's killed Daphne odora? In here I can get
Wait, they have like a 9-year life.
Water the heck out of them and they don't care. My media in here is not soil, and it drains like, well, it's like sand almost, but it's not. So I don't have to worry about it in here. But anyways, I have 3 different Daphne odoras in here. Actually, there's more, but there's 3 that I've easily seen. There's one over here called Majima, which is a really nice banded, very wide band of gold edge on it over there on the west side of the laugh house that a bunch of you are standing near. And our Daphnes are just opening. Where I live, they're already been in flower for a month, but anyways. So you can't smell them too much. There's a couple blossoms on this one here. This is one of the odd ones here. This is Nakafu. Mark was so excited when we got Nakafu. It's a very different variegation. It has a dark green edge, a cream band inside that. It's a greeny cream band, I should say. And then a center splash of green, which is a little bit of gray mixed into it. So it's a bit different again. So we're not just seeing the flowers on these cultivars of Daphne. We're looking for at the foliage as well. So it's an added bonus. You get 2 for 1 out of these, as long as you don't kill them. And then over here is, and I have to flip my page. I haven't flipped my notes yet. Hugh Reb. Rebecca is her trade name. Hugh Reb is the trade or the real name right there, which to me is very similar to Majima over there. Majima might have larger individual leaves to me, and it's kind of a little bit more bold. But you're gonna more easily find Rebecca probably. They're commercially producing that one in much larger numbers. Though I was surprised that Wayside Gardens of all places was listing Majima this year. So Nakafu you're not going to see very often. But we all know what those smell like. They smell so heavenly. I've heard it described as Fruit Loops.
Which is definitely heavenly.
I love the fragrance. Anyways, those are my 3 Daphne odoras, and let's see, what did I have here? Yeah, there's another one right there, and it looks so similar to Nakafu. Sure. I don't have any information on Nakafu really, or that one over there. I don't know if its flower color might vary or not. So
it's a white one, Tim.
It's a white one, and this one's a pale pink to white one, so it's hard to say. There's another new one which I can't think of the name right now. We just got it 2 weeks ago from, Joanne and Sebastian.
Oh, unique plant?
Unique plants. And it's one I think they found.
Oh, cool.
And it was a mutation. It's the one that sat on the table in there over the weekend. It's even better than Nakathu, I have to say. It's like winter silver or something like that. That was Jim. Anyways, he's not here. That's one to look for too. But you can't go wrong with a Daphne odora as long as you don't overwater.
What kind of lights do they like?
They'll take sun to shade.
Sun to full shade?
Reasonably shade. They'll be more open in the shade. But the advantage of shade is that you tend to have a canopy over them, which keeps them from getting excess water. Or say it's happily grown at the base of a tree for years and years and years. That tree either falls down or you have to cut it down for some reason. And then we have a heavy rain. It dies because it's been drowned. It got water that it didn't know it could get. It wasn't being sucked away anymore. That has happened to a lot of people I've talked to. But if you can amend your soil, get it as well drained as possible, and don't water them once they're, water them sparingly to begin with, and don't overwater them ever. They resent excess water. That's one of the key things with it. In a pot, just again, you want to don't overwater.
Don't overwater.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can grow them in pots very well if you have an issue. If you need to, I told a lady yesterday, you could put an umbrella over it. There's a question back here.
I've rooted mine and taken them down to my mom's beach place, and they're twice the size
on the sand.
Of the ones I have because of the sand and the good drainage.
Yeah. With our clay soils here, you have to worry about a lot more with the drainage. Another place I recommend is under the eaves of your house where the water doesn't get to. As long as you don't have a drainage issue that it's draining into the base of your house, you're fine. They grow in pots, yes. But still don't overwater them.
Just don't water them.
Exactly. Once they're happy, a lot of the Daphne often will grow almost like lithophytes. They'll, among stones. They will grow in a crevice. A lot of the smaller growing rock garden species in particular you see in hybrids. But I have a feeling that you could probably do the same thing with odora in reality. It's just we don't think of doing it.
Can you prune them? I have one
Minimally.
that I expected it to die, so I expected it to not get very big, and it's huge.
I would do it cautiously.
It's huge.
So that you don't till it.
It's covering my.
You might take a few
walk.
branches here and there and see if they sprout out. Don't do the whole thing at once. Let those sprout out so that they're still transpiring using water, because it's going to use far less water if it doesn't have leaves. And see if you start getting buds coming out where you cut. If you get good shoots there, then cut a little more on the ones you hadn't cut yet. Do it in stages would be my recommendation. Hate to say it.
What's the possibility of Maryland moving it to a spot that can handle a bigger one?
I think
Not
that's easier
happy?
said than done. Try rooting it.
It's 8 feet wide now.
Yeah, they don't like to transplant.
It's huge.
They don't like
It's 8 feet wide now.
Pardon? You can probably do them winter and spring. Yeah. In the summer, just after it has hardened off enough, you can do it. I've done some of the rock garden types that way in June, early June.
So that'd be a good time for the next workshops.
Yeah.
Yeah, May's a really good. I've done May.
Tim,
Yep.
what's your favorite Daphne? Other than that?
It's hot.
I don't know, because we don't grow that many of them here. I was to the NARG, so the Rock Garden Society's national meeting in May in Michigan. Oh my goodness, rock garden daphnes. They would have these low-growing ones about 8 tall, and they'd be this wide, and just covered in pink or white blossoms in different shades. I've killed so many of them. I've killed some in here, even in the media in here. They're more challenging for us here, but we can theoretically grow them. I can't name them offhand.
That's Carol Mack.
Carol Mackey, that's a Burkwoodii. We can grow those a little better than some of the others here. I have not grown that one myself. But that's a Burkwoodii. There's another Daphne there, but it's not a winter flower. That has, I think, might be one of the parent species of Carol Mackey, if I remember right. But can't do it again. But down here, speaking of Daphne, there's another Daphne, and unfortunately, we'll all just have to file by this one at some point. It's just in bud. And you have to look under the foliage. This one is a little different. It's deciduous. So you're saying it has leaves now? Yes, it's deciduous in the summer. Yes. This is a dead bush all summer long. Come October, early November, it decides to leaf out. And it's a yellow flowered species. It's not white or pink. It's yellow. This is I can spit it out, right? Did I flip this over? Yes, I did. Pseudomezereum. It's a Japanese species, if I remember correctly. Mark actually, I think, brought these back from Japan. But this one will take, you have the deciduous shade again. Since it's active during the winter, you can have this spot that's as dark as ever all summer long and dry as ever all summer long because there's heavy shade and root competition. But this one will leaf out during the fall when the other trees are losing their leaves, and it will prosper in there. And then, if you keep an eye out, you see the yellow blossoms. They are not fragrant that I've been able to smell, but it is a quite different looking plant from when you realize that it's a Daphne. It's kind of cool. But that's one to look at right here. What else do I have about it? Yeah, yellow flowered, summer dormant. Under deciduous foliage, yeah. Dry shade, yes. Yeah, like I said, goes to sleep for the summer to beat the heat. So, but yeah, I'll get started. The next one on here is a Cyclamen. It's Cyclamen coum, which is one of the only winter flowering ones we have in the garden. There are some others that will either come in, like heterofolium will flower sometimes into January, not always. Typically into late fall is when it's in flower. But the one we're looking at now is coum, which is one of the more common, the two most common species that you plant in the garden here, coum and heterofolium. Great foliage regardless if they're in flower, but they're just starting to poke up into blossom right now. They can range from white to pale pink. The white ones tend to have a red mouth or a little or magenta on their lips, however you want to say. And the others, the pink ones tend to have that magenta as well, but then the pink, and it can be varying shades. The leaves on the plants vary from plant to plant. They can be silver, they can be pure green, they can have what they call a Christmas tree on them. They're all unique. Like I was saying, telling some of them, I haven't gotten these to grow very many places in the garden. I can grow them in here, no problem. And they're actually self-sowing. If you look down here at the corner, there's one. I did not plant that one. We planted them right here. There's a few there that volunteered. And actually, you all fouled by one that's over there, and I don't know how it got over there. It's along the edge. But there's a really nice green-leafed one back here. Nice deep colored flowers on it. They're often fragrant. The coums are fragrant. Heterofoliums are not. If you can get down here, they're not as strong as purpurescence, though. That's the only thing. Purpurescence, which is theoretically a summer flower, is very fragrant. But another great little thing to tuck away in your yard, your garden.
What kind of conditions?
Well-drained soil.
Well-drained.
They'll take shade. They'll take sun. They don't care. They, again, the coums tend to go summer dormant. They may hold a couple leaves, but they're going to go, for the most part, dormant. So they don't care what's there in the summer months, for the most part. As long as it's not too wet. And here this is actually one of the heavier beds in here. Whenever we built this now in 2012, February 2012, we started in here. This was the first bed I started working on. So I mixed in the clay, ugly soil that was in here with the good stuff that we brought in. I quickly stopped doing that because, well, my back was telling me I couldn't. So this bed actually got mixed, and these are doing perfectly fine. I also have some over there underneath that little Japanese maple over there. Julian's pendulum, or weeping, regardless. You'll see them as we go out. So those are getting excellent drainage. They're not staying wet because of the maple right there. So they'll grow underneath your shrubs, your deciduous shrubs, really well. And so you can have them through the winter, and then you won't need to worry about them through the summer. And it protects and keeps them a little bit on the dry side through the summer. Any questions?
So do they need the sun in winter then?
They prefer to have sun in the, yes, they prefer to have sun in the winter.
What do they like in terms of fertilization?
I don't fertilize them in here so much, but I mean, probably just your average soil would be fine. That is, don't over-fertilize them. They're from the Mediterranean, Southern Europe. There are a few species of Cyclamen that range into North Africa, Israel, Turkey area. They aren't in necessarily the most fertile areas, nutritionally speaking. They, yeah, I didn't put anything about that stuff in here, but they grow. Coums actually grows at a relatively high elevation at times, so they're very hardy too. So if you have relatives who live in Zone 5, you can grow these. I had them for a few years in Pennsylvania. We'll get here. The next plant is this Grevillea right here. Does anybody know anything about Grevillea? Where they're from?
South Africa.
No. They have relatives from South Africa, but they aren't. And they're not from Italy. No. He was closer with South Africa. They're Australian. There aren't a lot of Australians that do well here, and there really aren't a lot of Grevillea that do well here. I've killed numerous Grevillea. This is one that has grown, and I have another one down near the building that has grown, but it's not as attractive as this one. This is Grevillea porlinda. Leanne is what I'm going to say. I'm not quite sure how you say that name. That's what it was listed as. There's a whole series of porlindas. I don't know if there are any of the other ones will grow here or not. They're complex hybrids done at a nursery, I think, called Porlinda in Australia. And they were all done by this one fellow, and I don't remember his name either, and I didn't write that down. But we wouldn't know him anyways.
Do you know where in Australia?
No. It's Australia. But I do know that this is a hybrid between Juniperina and Victoriae. Victoriae is one of the species that actually sometimes grows here, and the other one I have in the garden is a Victoriae. Juniperina is one very similar to it. That this is actually, most of what you're seeing are not open. These are mostly buds, which I find are really cool, even in bud. The flowers are a little bit lighter once they actually open, and if I probably picked some of the ones that were open, they'd shatter as I pass them around at this point, but oh, here's one that's actually completely open. It's not very big. They're in clusters typically, but you can pass that one around. It's not as pretty when it's open as it is when it's in bud. I just find it so cool that it's surviving here. This is in the family, the Proteaceae, which, what's your name? I know, but what's your name?
Bill.
Bill. Bill said that they were, he thought South Africa, which Proteaceae is a southern hemisphere plant, family of plants, and South Africa is probably the center of diversity for them, and then Australia, and then the west coast of South America is where you're going to find them. Not here. They typically like Mediterranean climates, much better than our climate here, where we have, well, we have wet year-round in relative respect in comparison to a Mediterranean climate. We don't have, we can go ups and downs in temperature, which they can too, but yeah, they typically don't like it. Another thing that's crazy about these, Australia apparently does not have much phosphorus in its soil. These plants often cannot tolerate the phosphorus that we have in our soil, and will get phosphorus toxicity and die. So this is one you plant it, and you were asking about fertility with Cyclamen. This is one you don't fertilize. You plant it in the worst soil you have and don't fertilize it, and it'll probably be fine. So,
how large does it get?
I was surprised. I looked this one up. I think it get up to 12 feet wide and about 8 feet tall. I didn't plan on that.
Was it fast growing?
This was planted, I think I planted this here in summer of 2014. Yeah, and it was about yay big.
Yes, I would say yes.
Yeah, it has grown very vigorously. The original plant where we got the cuttings from is actually at Plant Delights Nursery, Juniper Level Botanic Gardens, and the newer part of the gardens that Tony has across the road. So his plant was about this size 2 years ago. Any other questions?
What's the span on the flowering from when to when?
Throughout the whole winter and into spring. They can sporadically flower in the summer. From what I understand, this is its first real flowering since I planted it. So it wasn't phased either last winter at all. I thought that would kill it because we were almost down. We were between 3 and 6 here the one night, last year in February, and it didn't have a burnt leaf on it. I figured that would kill it.
These plants that come up from the southern hemisphere, they come up here to the northern hemisphere. Do they get a little confused, or
I don't think this is confused.
what's that?
After a few years, they probably
they
reacclimatize to our cycle of time and light and temperature, because a lot of them are associated with light and temperature.
Does it need full sun or
Full sun is ideal. They'll take light shade. I have the other one I have is actually in too much shade. It's next to the Explain Center underneath the arbor. I put it there to protect it. Well, it's starting to get too far out, and it's a little bit really lanky. I need to get a haircut in the spring and hopefully not kill it. This one here is Hamamelis intermedia sunburst. No wait, sunburst. Yes. I just wanted to stop here. This is one of the. We've all seen a lot of the Hamamelis, the witch hazels in flower. The X intermedias, they are hybrids between japonica and mollis, and some might think this is mollis. They're not quite sure, but lump it in. But I just wanted to mention them. Often they're very fragrant. I was reading about this one. They say some say they can't smell anything on this one. I can smell some of them. Right today I can't. There was differing information on this one. Some said it was really bright yellow, and I'm thinking deeper yellow. And others said light yellow. And that was from Hilliard's Arboretum that said it was light yellow, or pale yellow. I think it's pale yellow. But if you do see this in the next couple weeks, you come over here. Let's see. No, I can't see it on this, but they have 4 petals. They're a little bit too constricted yet on this. And they have kind of a burgundy center to them. So there's actually a bicolor effect if you get real close to the flowers on this. And design-wise, I moved it back here. This used to be in the mixed border before we put a pathway through over here. I put it up against the holly hedge in hopes that it would make it stand out. And that's what they suggest, putting it against a dark background. For when this one comes out with the pastel yellow flowers you get, it really stands out well. It was rated better, I think, than Arnold's Promised, actually, for this cultivar. Arnold's Promise is one of the standards in Hamamelis from Arnold Arboretum. I couldn't find out where it came from. I wanted to find out, but I couldn't. No one said. So, anyways, just wanted to mention Hamamelis intermedias. Great plants for your garden throughout the winter. They flower for about 2 months for us in reality, once they get going. But they look at their peak for about 3 weeks probably. This is Chaenomeles Orange Storm. This is one of Tom Ranney's introductions. One of the Professor Tom Ranney from here at NC State, who has done tons of breeding up in the mountains. I forget what they've changed the name to. The name of the place has changed. Anyways, up in the mountains.
It's in Mills River now.
Yeah, Mills River?
Yeah,
near Mills River. Anyways, this is a large, actually double flowering quince, and it's nearly thornless. I haven't noticed any on it at all. Supposedly it only gets 3 to 4 feet tall. I do question that. And it flowers on both the newer wood and the older wood. A lot of the older cultivars of Chaenomeles would flower way down inside. Still, these are back maybe 6 to 12 inches from the tips, but that's relatively close to the front of the stem, the top of the stem. He selected for that. He actually used, there's one that we passed by over here called Dragon's Blood as one of the parents that he used in his breeding. I don't know if that's the one parent of this or not. For the doubleness of the flower on that is what he used that for. These are typically sterile. They don't produce the fruit that you get on some of the Hamamelis, which then in turn gets cedar apple rust. And you'll get these lovely deformed fruit on it that then erupt into orange sporangia, I think, or whatever, the fungi, anyways, popping out of them in midsummer on humid days. So you don't get that. This doesn't look as great as it could, but like I said, we've had some cold weather. In another week, if we have some stay above the upper 20s, or into the upper 20s, we'll be perfectly fine, and this will be in full flower. The flowers are a good 1.5 inches or 2 across, so it's actually quite spectacular. Any questions?
Does this hold up better foliage-wise compared to the old-timey ones? You know, a lot of quids just about lose all the leaves.
Yeah, and I think that might go with the, somewhat to the fungal issues with the, like the cedar apple rust. I don't know though. I haven't. It's never densely foliaged, but what quince is? I wouldn't say that it's thin from that or not really, but
aren't there two other varieties?
There's
like a red and yellow?
there's red and pink. And I don't have a good sized one of either of them. I think I have red, I don't have the pink one. I have a couple orange.
It doesn't seem to travel much. Is that like a problem?
That might be one of the characteristics too. But it isn't that old. If we tried to move it on that, I have a feeling that it would start to sucker. So many of the quinces tend to sucker, especially if you disturb the root system. If you try to dig the whole thing out, it still comes back up in the same spot where there's a root. It's something you can't kill once you establish. Low maintenance. And this one's not going to be prickly.
How old is this plant?
I think I planted this probably in 2009 or 10. I don't know if we have it on the label or not. No, I don't. So yeah, it's 2009 or 10.
3 gallon and it's gotten this big.
I don't even know if I started from the 3 gallon on this one or not. This might have been a 3 gallon. I've gotten smaller ones, that's why I can't say. I might have even been a quart, that's the trouble. This one here is Hamamelis Amethyst. Hamamelis Amethyst is somewhat of a mystery for who his mommy and daddy are. Some think it's just a straight vernalis that just happens to be pink, which vernalis is one of the southeastern native Hamamelis. But it may also have some intermedia in it, some of the species we just saw. So some hybrid, some Asian blood, which Mollis and Japonica are the parents of intermedia, and they're both Asian. So it's somewhat of a mystery. The name Amethyst was designated to this one by Dawn Shadows of Shadows Nursery in Tennessee. But the plant originally originated from a nursery in Ohio. What else do I have about it? It's just a unique color in reality. There aren't too many of this pinky color of petaled Hamamelis. There might be one or two others now that they're the time 10 years ago, 12 years ago, there weren't any. I think it was named in 2004, I think, is when it got its name. 2004 or 2003, somewhere in there. But, it's starting to really grow in here, as you can see, and it's just a really cool color, I think, for Hamamelis. Yep.
Question. Is there a male and a female?
No. The flowers on these, as far as I know, are perfect. So you don't have boys and girls, you just have one. Any other questions? Probably up 15, maybe 20 feet it could get. It's still pretty young. This has been here, this was here when I started working here 10 years ago, so, and it was planted the year before I started here, in 2005. I think it was probably about this big in 2006.
Got a yellow flower.
There's a yellow flower? Oh, there is! There is! It's freaked. Now we're gonna have we have a mutant.
It's colored outside.
There are some I have noticed on some of the other Hamamelis that have, like early in the season, if they come out, that is, say if it flowered in the fall, sometimes they'll throw out a flower or two. They'll often be off color, but that could be a mutation there. I've never seen a yellow flower on this, but if it's a vernalis, you would typically be a coppery color, an orangey color. So that would make me think that maybe it does have some of that intermedia in it, which would Mollis is a yellow species, and I think Japonica has some range to it, but are typically yellow as well. Okay, any other questions or comments before we go to the next one? And don't move. The next one is right here. This is a Mahonia. This is Mahonia gracilis. This is not like any of the other Mahonia you're going to see typically around here. Most of them are these spiky, sharp things from Asia. This is a Mexican, and this is, it's very fragrant. I don't have to stick my nose in it, and I can smell it right here. You all need to come by it and smell it. The flowers are held in among the foliage, and there's so many terminals on this. unlike the Asian ones where you have this, there's so many big thick stems that you only have X number of flower spikes, you get them all over here. There's buds everywhere forming flowers. Very fragrant again, very different qualities to it. And like I said, it's not prickly at all. It's soft. It'll probably take full sun to half shade, or actually shade with no problem, given the opportunity. It has a wide distribution throughout Mexico from what I was reading, but it does very well for us here. And it's been flowering for about a month. And a lot of my other Mahonias, the flowers and the buds got damaged on them from the cold weather we had in the ice. This one does not look phased. I take it back. There are a couple of damaged buds here, but the majority of them are unfazed. Any questions?
Yes.
Okay.
Must be purchased locally.
That I can't say. Typically this one is grown from seed. I haven't rooted it. A lot of the Mexican ones are a little bit more difficult for us to root, so I don't know if anyone's commercially producing them. I have grown them from seed one time, I think, but we used those for our connoisseur program. I haven't seen fruit set too much since then. Yep.
Anyone know if the deer?
They typically don't go after too many of the Mahonias from what I know, but
Yeah,
being that this isn't overly prickly,
Right.
I don't know if they'll attack it or not.
That's what I wondered. Has anyone grown this that had deer trouble?
I found another material that did out.
They like it?
Yeah.
It might depend on how desperate they get too.
Yeah.
This next one kind of looks a little bare right now, but this one will flower off and on throughout the winter. This is Lonicera standishii, variety of lancifolia. You may have heard of Lonicera fragrantissima, which is the more commonly available one, the winter honeysuckles. It has white flowers, and typical standishii does too. But this is a somewhat semi-evergreen form of standishii. Standishii often has a much more rounded leaf. Might come to a point, but it's not. It's more like that wide than. As you can see, there's still some leaves on here that are less than an inch wide. Anyways, I think this variety even is typically white, but I was doing some research. I think this might be a cultivar called Budapest, which we don't have that in our record, but it's a pink variety of this cultivar, or this species selection. But anyways, this is one, it's just sporadically flowers throughout the winter, and when the wind blows, when you're at the right spot, Lonicera fragrantissima, standishii propusii, the hybrid between them, they're all wonderfully fragrant. And we have some of them in other parts of the garden. They kind of look more ratty to me than this one, in reality actually, when they're in leaf. And actually they're in full leaf right now. They haven't dropped their leaves this year. But they're not as exposed as this. But the leaves aren't as pretty. So throughout the summer, this is a much more attractive plant visually, but the fragrance and the pink color of this one is a really nice aspect that you don't have in the other fragrant winter honeysuckles. Back behind me, there's a pink flowered shrub. I think you can still see a few flowers on it. Okay, that is Camellia williamsii, Mary Christian. The Williamsii camellias are hybrids between japonicas and saluensis, the Camellia saluensis. These hybrids, yes, I got it right. These hybrids flower over, again, much like the magnolias down there that I showed you, they flower over a long period of time. So the buds aren't all open at once. And so if some get damaged, there's a couple that, there's more that'll be there to replace them a few days later. There barely weren't anything open there the other day, the end of last week. But they're starting to open again, and Mary Christian will be covered in pink flowers again by the end of the, by the end of the week or next week. I think they're calling for 28 one night. I don't think, you can get down to about 27, 28 for camellias and you're good. But if you get below that, they'll turn brown. Anyways. These are very vigorous hybrids. The leaves are, I think, they're really nice refined leaves. They're not as, the japonicas are kind of just real big. These are a little bit smaller to me and a little more refined looking, like it's a finer appearance. The flowers are single on this, so they're not doubled, but just a simple pink flower. Good flowering plant in general. Like, you can see how many are on there. That's always a spectacular camellia regardless of the year and how bad the weather has been. Mary Christian. I couldn't find out a whole lot about her, but she's from around 1940, 42 is when she was introduced. And she got several awards I mentioned earlier. One of the, I think it was the little Narcissus in the Spree Garden, had gotten an award of garden merit, and that one got award of garden merit from the Royal Horticultural Society. And there were a few other plants along this tour in reality that did too, and I just forgot to mention those. But one of the camellias to grow in your yard, I think it's going to give you some color regardless of the year. That's the great thing about it. It's not like some of the Camellia japonicas that all come out or partially come out and they turn brown. And you're done for that year. One lady at my church, she asked me, she said her camellia flowered in December and didn't look like there were any more buds on it. I said, yeah, it's not going to have any more now. So this one flowers over a long period. So. I think that's about all I have for that one. Does anybody have any questions? Sure.
Is this grown in full sun?
It'll take a reasonable amount of sun. This is north facing here, but it'll take full sun. There's another one squeezed right in here. I don't know if you can see it, but it has a few pink flowers. That's actually a mutation from that one. And we passed one actually in the winter garden where we were just out at the Mahonia. That's golden spangles. And over there, it gets full sun. Not an issue. Not an issue. I think some of the japonicas, if you look over here, if japonica will often yellow in full sun. They'll take the full sun, but they'll yellow. And that's what you see there. I have not seen that on golden spangles either. So
is that the saluensis?
It might be giving it some more sun tolerance. I mean, it doesn't really hurt the japonicas. It just makes them a little less pleasing to look at with that more of a yellow green instead of dark green. Right here, we're going to look at this little Narcissus. This is Narcissus junquilloides, variety Henrikii, or at least that's what we're calling it. This is one that has identity crisis. When I was looking up information, I find that it's sometimes classified as Ferdinandii, which I have Ferdinandii down there. It's not flowering yet, so I don't think it's quite that. But it's also sometimes classified as flavus, which I can't find a whole lot about that other than that either. So who knows? It's a great little Narcissus. This one often flowers the first of the year, and I've had some of these in flower since the first of the year. And it flowers over a very long period of time. This is one of the tiny little jonquils, just a great little plant to have in the garden. You can put these into a rock garden, or you can see these are growing in an average spot here. Again, like that one we saw earlier, the Sporo, it prefers as much sun as you can give it. And it also leaves out very early. These start to leaf out in the fall again, probably mid to late October. You'll start to see the foliage emerging from the ground. And it's cylindrical, which we had a group of volunteers and master gardeners helping us go through and check all of our Narcissus last week, and I've even had my general volunteers saying, ask me, is this actually a Narcissus? You know, the ones that have brown leaves. Yeah, it does. They don't all have flat, wide leaves. These have a more round, linear leaf, thinner leaf, and darker green. Just an adorable little one. I think there should be decent fragrance, but it might just depend on the time of the day. I'm passing around one little stem there, but the jonquils tend to be really nice and fragrant. Let's see. This species, or whatever, what we're calling this species anyways, Junquilloides Henrikii, is actually from central Portugal. So it's from actually a small area. If you know the size of Portugal, it's not a big country. So. And it's, for us, one of the very early bloomers of the Narcissus. Just another one to put in your garden, and you'll have flowers for at least a month, maybe 2 months, just off this one plant, or this one cultivar species. Another long bloomer in your garden to give you a lot of, somewhat of bang for your buck. Any questions, comments?
Are those available?
Yes, again, Brent and Becky's is where we've gotten these all from. Again, you can probably find them online and other places. I don't think you're going to find this one at Logan's or Homewood or your local nurseries offhand in their bulb box with boxes of bulbs in the fall. But if you look, you can special order these. And I think they're very well worth it. Any others? Okay, our last one, which is just peeking out right here. There's a red flowers right there, is Chaenomeles japonica, Atsuya hamada. This is one I've loved as long as I've worked here, which is 10 years now. It always has a spattering of flowers on it from late fall until spring. It does flower more prolifically late winter into spring though. It's just starting to get started. And again, it flowers over a long period, so it's not gonna, it'll get some damaged florets and then it'll flower again when there's some warmer weather. That's what I really like about these Camellias, the quinces in general. The one we saw earlier tends to actually be a later flowering one consistently than this. There aren't too many thorns on this one. Again, I was saying thorns about that being a benefit of this orange storm, that it was thornless. This is one that tends to be pretty thornless, though you might find one hiding in there. What's somewhat cool about this is it's actually wild collected. This was a collection made by a guy from the Pacific Northwest, I think from Oregon or Washington, can't remember which place, but he was on Mount Fuji, and he brought cuttings back from this plant that he found growing wild. And I don't know where he came up with the name. I've asked some Japanese people about the name, and they said it doesn't mean anything. So, okay. Can't tell you anything about the name, but we got this, I don't know, years ago from Sisters Nursery. But I just love the blood red color of it. It's a single flower. It doesn't have extra petals, but again, it just flowers over a long time. Great cut flower in the winter. You can stick into arrangement and they'll open up. Force them. Can't kill them once they're established. Like we were saying earlier, you try to dig up a quince and it'll keep on coming up where it was. Unless you want it to survive, and then it'll die maybe.